Hi there. Welcome to A Creative Affair, a collection of conversations exploring creativity through the art of photography and other creative passions. I'm Brie, and this is our 15th episode we've recorded. We don't call them by numbers, but sometimes it's kind of fun to say how many we've done. And if you don't know by now, I am a life coach for creatives. And I just want to say the coaching work that I've done on myself has been some of the best work that I've ever done in my personal life. So before I started doing this work, I was sometimes, I would get frustrated when I was unhappy, and I wouldn't understand some of the things I was thinking. And now, even though not a lot has changed, it's just me. And it's just me and my brain that has changed. And I'm in such a happier place because I understand and I give myself a lot of hugs.
Well, Brie, what a wonderful introduction there. And it is, life's such a journey, isn't it? And I think the biggest key to me for being an artist is understanding self. And the more I understand who I am, and I use my art to do that, the better off I am. And the benefit of that is the better my art becomes as well. And the two are intertwined together, understanding self, understanding it, and producing it. And being an artist, it's something that I'm absolutely obsessed with. You know, I love to spend all day at an art gallery. I love to pick up a pencil and draw all day, or to wander the bush taking photographs, or to have models and create scenes and photograph people, to have an exhibition, to show people my work, or to have a book. In fact, Brie, that brings me so much joy into my life, so much love. It's so beautiful. And that brings us to our topic today, doesn't it? We're going to talk about this joy. And obviously, joy is very connected with our art. And in our last episode, we talked about how the flow state. And really, we want to be in the flow state because it brings us so much joy, doesn't it? And really, they're quite linked together, I think, very much so. I probably forgot to introduce myself. I'm Len Metcalf, and I'm from a creative from Sydney and an educator. But let's get into joy.
Yeah, let's talk about being a joyful creative. I just love that title, on being a joyful creative.
Well, just before we started, we had a lovely conversation talking about the difference between joy, happiness, passions, and trying to sort out the differences and why we have, and why in particular we actually chose the word joy for this particular episode to focus us on. It was quite a fascinating conversation, wasn't it?
Yeah, one of the things that struck me in our little pre-conversation is we talked about enjoyment, and that took me back to thinking about flow and how it's so enjoyable. And I'm like, and joy is actually in the word enjoyment. Like, we want to be experiencing having these amazing, enjoyable experiences. And I think all of those, so much of what we do can culminate into living life in such a joyful way. But the interesting thing is, I don't think that means that we're like happy all the time.
Well, as someone who suffers from anxiety and depression sometimes in my life, I can tell you I'm not happy all the time. Definitely not. But I do have my happy place that I like to go to at times, and art is definitely part of that happy place.
Yes, for me as well. And I think one of the reasons I've been, I create in so many different ways, or I have, over my life, is that creating does bring me, it does bring me so much happiness and joy. It sometimes can be kind of frustrating, especially when we get stuck on something and we're working through something. But I kind of think that's all part of the enjoyment of it, unless we really take ourselves into a place where it's not. But sometimes working through all those different little bumps and figuring things out can really be part of having this enjoyable creative experience, because that is the act of creating, is figuring out how to make all those things work, and then having the satisfaction of whatever it is that we're creating. I was going to say producing something, but it doesn't always, end up in like something tangible, right? But most of what we are all talking about does.
Well, we all are obsessed about making stuff, and that also is one of the drivers. But so much of my actual deep happiness comes from the actual doing, rather than the product in itself, or even the making. It's the process of being lost in the doing that really seems to bring the longer term happiness, and learning that is part of the journey. So understanding who I am, that the product actually isn't bringing the happiness, it's actually the doing. And that's been a personal journey to understand that, and that I don't have to be successful in making art, like making masterpieces each time. Or every time I pick up a camera, I don't have to make a wonderful artwork, but the act of picking up the camera and making, or trying or attempting and doing, it's that moment that is actually the incredibly joyful and important part of the process that keeps me going. And having to understand the bit where I'm actually not being performing at my highest, or making actually something that's physical, and accepting that as actually being the part of it. I know that's quite a trite saying, but it's the journey rather than the destination, is what I'm trying to say there, I think.
I think that's what you're trying to say. You did. I had a question that popped up for me, and I was going to ask you, and maybe you could elaborate as well. What kind of things have you put in place for you to have a more joyful experience? And I heard you say one is just allowing sometimes all of the crap to come up. And I'm wondering if anything else is coming to you, that anything that you do to make that such a more a happier, more enjoyable experience. Because I think it's a trite saying, but I think it's so true that it really does boil down to, we want to enjoy the whole journey of the creative process.
Well, with that saying is letting go of the destination, and pulling back a little bit from it, and not trying so hard towards it all the time. So that's one of the things I think is very, very important in that. But one that's surfaced in the last few weeks that I've been talking about over and over is totally pushing and embracing the failure, the moments where I'm experimenting, taking risks, exploring. Because if to be an artist for me is so much about making something that's meaningful to myself, and I have to feel that it's uniquely expressing who I am in that process. So hanging on to that uniqueness means that I have to be experimenting all the time. And if I'm just making safe work, Brie, and yes, I can go and make a safe artwork very easily, but it doesn't excite me. It doesn't stir me. And so the only way to get to the exciting work is to be taking absolutely huge risks all the time, embracing the happy accident and searching for that edge where it takes me to that point of getting excitement about my own work. So I think that's one of those points that allows me to enjoy the journey, is letting go of perfection, if you like.
I love that. It's interesting because it's kind of a paradox that we can enjoy the process. We can enjoy the process so much more when we're actually like pushing ourselves to the point where we're feeling like there's risk and possible failure, and because I think we tend to think that happiness and joyfulness all feel so safe, and what you're saying is it's really not. For you anyway, it's really not in the safety of the creating. It's in the pushing and the working and the doing and putting yourself in a place where where you feel uncomfortable. But I don't think that that's for such a long time that you're pushing and being uncomfortable for some moments, And then you realize, at least this is what I'm envisioning, until you maybe create some art that you're like, oh, this is where I wanted to push myself to. And this is what I wanted. And it even actually feels so much more meaningful for you because you did that work. Is that ringing true to you?
I don't actually know at the time sometimes whether I'm making good art or not, and the space between making and analysing it and looking at it is. I've expressed this before in earlier episodes, how important that space is to allow that emotional distance. But the risk taking and being on edge is high. That's really important to me, and I've mentioned before a love for rock climbing. I love scaring myself, and going into the unknown with art is actually pushing that. I don't know if it's an adrenaline in rock climbing. It is, but in art, it's something else. But it's the unknown that becomes incredibly exciting. I really love that unknown.
Maybe there's a little adrenaline in the unknown.
Well, it is if you feel like it's a performance, there must be. I would say maybe. If you're on show or you feel like you have an audience, well then there could be an element in there that that drives a little bit of adrenaline, I suppose. I don't really know. Yeah. I'm only guessing on that one.
I think there's so much of what drives us to do our art. I just think there's so many different factors, that drive us, and that could be part of it, because we do it in so many different unique ways. So one of the interesting things about this episode is, in the past, we've written all kinds of these notes. And today, we literally only have a few questions, and that's it. And because we wanted to end the season with more of a flowing like conversation and just ask each other questions. And so I wanted to just take this little moment to pose these questions to you as a listener, so that you can maybe think about these for yourself, and we'll include them in our show notes so that you can just have them for your future reference. So the first one is, does your art bring you joy? And for me, it's yes. How about you, Len?
Oh, definitely. That's why I'm here.
I mean, yeah.
Honestly, that's why I'm here. It brings me so much joy.
If it didn't, I wouldn't be here either. And in 10 years, I hope it's still photography, but it could be, I don't know, it could be something totally different. I could maybe have learned to draw. Probably not. I'm just saying it's probably not going to happen. So I like that really scares me because I really don't think I'm good at it at all. I'll do stick figures. Maybe I can make that into art. And
maybe maybe
Go ahead.
other things can also bring us joy as well. I know one of the other things that brings me here is my love for teaching people and conversations, and so they also bring me joy. So as we're talking about art bringing joy, it's one of many, many things, and it doesn't stand alone in that. It works in a different way, but it's such a special thing.
Well, we are talking about being a joyful creative, and there are so many different ways we do that, and it's the way we live our life, and that's one reason that I coach creatives, and that is it is work. I mean, it is the work that I do. It's also I also have to be very creative in the coaching process, and overall, it's such a joyful life to lead that I'm working on myself and helping other people work on themselves and working on my art. And, sometimes I'm traveling with my husband, sometimes I'm just sitting on the sofa. And I think all of that creates this like beautiful, joyful life where I can say, I really do feel like I'm this joyful creative. Doesn't mean I feel happy all the time, but I feel overall like that I am living that kind of life. So one of the questions we have is, when have you found joy in creating art? And I just want to answer that.
Please do. I want to know.
Because I had an experience recently, and I think sometimes when we have experiences, we talk about the journey part, but when we have experiences that contribute to being this joyful creative, we look back on them very fondly and add them to our stack of bits that do contribute to that overall enjoyment and satisfaction. So recently, one of my favorite places is White Sands National Park.
And we love your photographs of White Sands, Brie. They're just absolutely gorgeous. And
thank you.
They're worth talking about, but that's something else.
We could do that one day. I'm happy to talk about that anytime. I love that. That's like one of my full galleries on my website. So I'm still working on them. But so recently, I took a trip to southern Utah, and on the way there and on the way back, we did a couple of days at White Sands National Park, and you can almost always talk me into doing a really long road trip if that park is involved. So I went there with a friend of mine, and we met up with another photographer, and we're out there. We met up with him. His name is Wayne Suggs, and he lives in Las Cruces, which is very near White Sands National Park. And when we came up to him, he was just already like ecstatic. He loves the place, and we were all so just thrilled to be there on these fabulous big white soft dunes with this gorgeous light. And the light there is always great, no matter if it's cloudy, it doesn't matter. And I remember a couple of experiences. One, Wayne walks down the dune and he starts whooping because of how much fun. The light is so good. And of course he's enjoying it, but I am so enjoying it because I love the park, and I love that someone else is loving the park. And it just fills me with so much, like, I'm laughing. I have all this really, it's such a happy, pleasurable experience. And having that, he went off down the dune, and so did my friend. And I am up at the top, and I decided to stay around because I saw some things happening and I just wanted to be there. And I so enjoyed myself just photographing the rest of the evening and noticing what was around me. And it was kind of culminating at the very end. I know I made this image that I absolutely love. When I made it, you talk about you don't know if you made an image that I know I made an image that is great for me. And I absolutely love it. And I knew it when I did it. And I just think that these kind of experiences just contribute. Like for me, this is going in my bucket of living a joyful, creative life. That kind of experience. I just wanted to share how fun that was.
Oh, Brie, what a wonderful experience that you've just had in White Sands. Oh, you have to take me one day. I really have to go. And, I love to call that a peak photographic experience where I'm just totally elated and loving being in that environment, being in the right headspace and the right moment, having your friends laugh and giggle and whooping actually helps set the scene as well, doesn't it? That adds an extra bit of spice that it's being shared and that you're not alone. And I think that's quite a magical thing too. And then what a beautiful thing to have an artwork that records that. And every time that you look at that into the future, it's going to trigger you back to that lovely memory of that place. And what a wonderful thing to do. It's so exciting.
Absolutely. And while you were talking, when you were saying peak photographing experience, I'm like, well, yeah, but we don't have those all the time. So what about these lulls? Like sometimes are we just doing some mundane things? Like, are you finding joy in some of the more kind of everyday parts of your creativity?
Well, the reason I use the word peak is because they're spectacular and they're the really, really high points, and I can actually I can list them and describe them, and I can pull out those photographs for you. But yes, there has to be joy in all the other parts. And there also has to be an element of chasing that as well. Chasing the ultimate high, if you like, and there's joy in that chase at all steps. And if there wasn't, I wouldn't be continuing to do it. And just working on your art. Like last night I had a little experience, and I was looking at work that I'd done maybe about 2 weeks ago, and suddenly it dawned on me that my work had actually had gone through the roof for a period of a few hours where I was producing the most beautiful, gorgeous work. And I remember thinking back to it like I was incredibly focused. I had ideas, and it was connected to where it was going. So the book that it's being made for, and the whole series that I was working on. And I was incredibly focused on making particular art that looked in a particular way that suited this series. And then afterwards, I'd forgotten about it. And it wasn't until I actually saw it again, and then there went another fair few hours, just disappeared, because I was immersed in processing it, exploring it, thinking about how it's going to go into this book. And then today when I get up, and the first thing I have to do when I turn my computer on is to start making sure that they're going into the right collection, and that they start putting over there. Even as I was talking to you, I was still working on my art in the back of my mind. And To be that distracted means it was a joyful experience for me. That there's definitely a level of obsession in this that actually brings the joy. That I never give up on trying to make something that is beautiful, I think.
I love being able to continually like on a daily basis, immerse ourselves in our art, whether or not I'm like on some, whatever trip, or whether or not, like if you're a painter, you're totally immersed in your art. There are other things you can be doing. Like I find myself, daydreaming. I was daydreaming about a new project I want to work on. And so sometimes I'm just relaxing and daydreaming about it. And yesterday morning, I printed a new image, and printing images is kind of new for me, and I love the experience of watching it like really come into a 3D form from this like digital, you're there in person. For a photographer, you're there in person, you make this like digital image, unless you're, you work with film. But being able to have the technical skills now to be able to print my own work and just have it come out of the printer and just gush over how much I love this beautiful piece, and really like loving my own art and finding so much joy in seeing it come out of the printer. It's just such a wonderful experience. And so there's different ways we can experience this joy with our art. But also, I'm printing this for a client, and so I'm going to mail it to her tomorrow. But what's so wonderful is to be able to help others also have some joy from our work that we do. So I think that is like one of the rewarding parts, is also having other people, message us and say and really express what it means to them. Even Len was saying how people who have enjoyed this podcast have messaged him, and same for me, that this is a creative affair, something that we have created, and we're so thrilled that it's bringing other people joy and really, putting some value out into the world for y'all.
So how much does other people, their reactions, the audience, if you like, your fans and your followers, how much is that tied in to you getting joy? Is it an overriding thing? Is it just an extra side benefit? Is it a motivator? Where does that sit for you, Brie?
It's definitely a side thing. Because if I am not in control of what, and I was telling you this, Lynn, earlier about, I've been doing a lot of work on myself and my relationship with other people, and what I think about, what I want to think and believe about what other people think about me, think and say about me, and all of those things. And I want the work that I do to just be motivating in itself. And if someone else loves it and enjoys it, then I found that really satisfying, but that's not a driving factor for me.
The reason I ask, and because I think when I was younger, it was, and actually learning to let go of that and actually bring it more to be about me and my enjoyment of it was an incredibly important part. And in fact, Brie, when I had my own art gallery and I started making work for the pure purposes to sell, the quality of my work went down. And I think making work just for recognition of other people, and I'm talking for myself here, was actually a misguided belief. And learning to make it for my own satisfaction actually made my work much better. And honestly, I enjoyed doing it more. When I was making it only for other people, it was more of a job, and it wasn't so exciting. And so as an intrinsic reward, the internal one is so much longer lasting in the longer run. And I think this is a really important question, because if we're talking about how to get joy, we want to, in our creativity, we want to find this part of ourselves and our art that's continuing for the long haul. We don't want it just to be on a peak moment. We want lots of obsession and reward and fulfillment over a long period of time.
And that doesn't mean that we don't derive some satisfaction with selling our art or making some art that is purely for monetary gain. But that's not necessarily where the joy is going to come from, I don't believe. And I think what you're talking about, Len, just to backtrack a little bit, when we are creating our art solely for the enjoyment of other people, we almost give our power to enjoy it ourselves to other people. Meaning, if other people enjoy it, then we can enjoy it too. Mm-hmm. And that leaves us powerless to really have that lasting happiness. And that is not what I want. I want to have the enjoyment of it for me. And I really don't make money, selling my art. But if that was my aim, then I would be doing some different things. But I always want my art to come from within and to be able to enjoy that for its own sake.
I think that's what separates different people out, particularly like professional photographers, as opposed to artists, like the category that we're talking about, and amateurs, when we're making work for our own selves. And I think this is tied into joy, and it also each different people get different things from it. And I think by us asking these questions to you, and we want you to stop and think about these questions for you, because working out the answer to fit you is part of the puzzle, isn't it, Brie? We need to solve for you, or you need to solve. I need to solve for me. Brie needs to solve for her. The answers, what is the things that are bringing us this great reward, and which ones do we need to focus on, and which ones do we need to let go of? And hopefully by us sharing our stories on this and our journeys, that we can open up and actually figure out other things. I say this because I remember telling people that I got so much joy from seeing my artwork in someone else's house. And I used to think that was what my purpose was. And now I've let that totally go back into the past. And now I'm more interested in making something that is totally satisfying to my own taste, without worrying what other people think about it.
Seeing your art in someone's house and they're enjoying it is very satisfying. And we can trick ourselves into thinking that actually just seeing our art on someone's wall, or getting, whatever it is externally that we're gaining from it, is where we're deriving our joy. And the conversation is really, I love that you said all that, Len, about our experiences and how that can help you all as creatives to figure out where you are currently receiving your enjoyment and your satisfaction, and how are you enjoying your art currently, and where you might want to be. If it's not in a place that you want to be, where do you want it to be? What would you like it to look like? And I think a lot of us that are professional, I don't call myself a professional, I'm an amateur. I'm doing it for the love. A lot of us that are professionals sometimes think that we can't make work that resonates with us that other people will want to buy. And I don't buy into that. I think that can happen. I think we can make work that we love, and that other people will see it, and that they will also love it too. So it's figuring out how you do that is partly the key.
Oh, definitely.
I said what you said in a different way. It's the same thing, isn't it?
It is the same thing because it's a focus. It's actually not the act itself that's rewarding in terms of the. It's more the focus of when we're the headspace we're in when we're making it. If we make art that moves us emotionally, we both have discovered that it's actually more meaningful, and it's also more meaningful for other people. And when we focus in on our own, we're connecting more with our inner emotions rather than trying to predict what other people are going to get from it. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying bringing joy to other people through your artwork. And it was one of our questions is, how does bringing joy to others through your artwork work for you? And it's amazing. To see someone totally enthralled in your work is an incredible experience, and I don't want to ever give that up. What I'm talking about is I don't want to make that the focus of my creation of artwork. I want it to be a happy byproduct that I get to enjoy at the end. And if someone pays me for it, even all the better. And yes, I don't consider myself a professional artist either, even though I've devoted my whole life to it, because I don't make very much of an income from my art. I make it from education. I consider myself a professional educator who teaches creativity and art and photography and those sort of things. These little tiny distinctions become quite important in the long run for me as I define who I am and my focus. And so we were talking about that photograph that I was excited about last night and this morning. I have no idea what other people how they will react to it. It's the motivation to keep going with it and to keep following it is for my own reward, and that's very, very special for me. And Brie, it's taken me a lifetime to get to this moment. Well, actually, not really a lifetime. I'm sure as a child, when I was drawing, I was doing it that way, and somewhere I got lost. Maybe it was at art school, maybe it was when I had my own gallery, maybe when I wanted to make it a career, in the other side. And then it's been coming back to that pure enjoyment that I had when I was younger. It's a common theme, I think, circling around in our lives, and we often knew what we were doing when we were younger, and we lose our path, and then we spend our life trying to come back to find ourselves again.
Isn't that so true?
It is, isn't it? And as a child, didn't we have so much joy in our life?
Yes, because we were playing, and we did an episode all about play and experimenting and just having fun, letting yourself go, and so I'll link to that in the show notes. So that was a fun episode because it's fun to talk about, like, opening your mind and allowing yourself to do all that and really enjoy yourself. So I think this is such an interesting thing to talk about because I think this is a great moment to end our season 1 with, because now that we've talked so much about creativity and all of these different topics that kind of contribute to it, it's such a great time to think about where we are and are we satisfied with it, and why not? And maybe there are moments where you can remember, you can find some memories and some evidence that you are enjoying this journey that you're on, and you can put it into the bucket of being a joyful creative, right? Because I think we're always contributing to that in little ways, even if it's not those peak experiences. And then also taking a little time to look forward and think about where, and I mentioned this before, but this is my invitation to you as listeners, and maybe to me as well, where we want to go and what we how we want to be living our creative lives for ourselves and for our most enjoyment, and what that might look like. And then trying to bridge the gap between there. And listen, we're all creatives. We can totally figure out how to do that. We can figure out how to get to that space. Absolutely. I believe in it.
One of the questions here that arises for me, and is how can we be more joyful creatives? And I really love that question, because learning and learning to expand that space, because if we're honest, there's a lot of frustration, isn't there, in being an artist, and a lot of learning, and a lot of moments. We talked a little bit about failure and play, and reframing. And it's lifting these wonderful experiences and reframing the negative ones into this journey, so that we can actually enjoy those hard times and make more of the good ones. I think that's a really important thing. And as we come to an end of this season, I really want to find this out and include other people in this conversation, because I'm really fascinated to find out how they maintain their joyful creative life, and how that actually works for them. I think that's absolutely a fascinating question for you, for me, for Brie, and for asking it for other people. So
how can we be more joyful creatives? And maybe that's what we'll talk more about that next season. Is this where we give a sneak peek? You already gave a little sneak peek about next season.
I think I spilled the beans there a little bit.
Okay, so so there will be a season 2. We're doing this in seasons because we love to be joyful creatives. And while we love doing this podcast, we don't want to be doing it all the time. So we've created season 1. Hopefully there are episodes you want to go back and listen, and then listen again, and gain some knowledge and share with friends so you can have discussions about them. We would just absolutely love that. But in season 2, we're going to be taking a kind of a longer break. We're not going to tell you right now what that is, because we don't even know. But we are going to have guests on. So excited about having guests, all kinds of different artists and creatives. We're just so thrilled. So we would take we would take some suggestions for anyone that finally gets to this episode and hears this. If you have any wonderful suggestions. But also, we're going to be doing shorter episodes in between, and we're going to call them, go ahead, Len.
Quickies. We're going to have quickies.
So this is a creative affair after all, and this is so playful and fun for us. So we're going to have these short episodes called quickies.
The mind just boggles, doesn't it?
I know.
Where Brie and Len's heads are. That's quite funny, isn't it?
And what's funny is we've said it so over and over again, yes, we're going to have these quickies. And every time we do it, we just giggle and laugh, because it's so fun for us to do this process. So those ones will kind of look like these episodes, only a little shorter. Or maybe others. We're gonna explore all different kinds of things, but in a shorter format. So we're hoping that the conversations with other creatives are a little bit longer, and then we have quickies. So much fun. So stay tuned for season 2. But if you haven't, get all caught up on the rest of season 1 and pass it on. So.
And there's one thing that we're going to try and stick with is we're going to keep trying to have fun. Of course, yes. Brie and I are going to keep flirting and explore our relationship even further. And we're going to hang on to some of the things that we've been doing this first season, which is hanging on to topics and trying to explore them. So rather than interviewing someone, which is seems to be quite a popular formula in podcasting, we want to include them in this conversation and actually nail them with questions around a topic and further our understanding of something around our topics that we have been exploring. So we're going to use our guests in a fantastic way to add depth to our conversations rather than just introducing you to more other photographers. We're interested in what we can learn from creatives from all of the fields that may be interesting, like writers, musicians, painters,
sculptors. There's a sculptor. There's a sculptor I'm going to ask. Just so
poets.
You know. So excited.
Every time we play our music in the intro, I get really excited, and I love the process that we went through working with a composer and a musician to record something that was reflective of where we wanted to be. And that was a beautiful thing too. So I'm really excited about season 2. And when we made the decision that we were definitely going ahead for that, it was a huge relief because before we actually decided on that and agreed on it, there was a little bit of anxiety about, is it going to finish? It feels like we're just getting started. So I am so excited about season 2. And I'm also really excited by the flexibility in there as us as creatives to go in multiple different directions and see what works and where we end up. And that's so exciting.
It's 100% the journey. So stay with us, stay on our journey, and stay tuned for season 2. We're so excited. Well, just to finish up, just to let you know, one of the things that I love is I love coaching other creatives. And, we talked about being joyful in our art. And if you want help going from where you are now to becoming a joyful artist, I can coach you on that. But what I really love to do is I love helping creatives get a jump start on achieving big goals. And I have a 10-week Dream It, Do It program. And we work together to identify obstacles and overcome them in a 10-week program. And then you have all the tools to go out and do amazing things. I just love it so much. So you can go to my website, creativemindscoach.com. And guess what? I give a free session to everyone. I give a free session. I just love that. I love it that much. So you can sign up for a free session and come talk to me. So awesome.
Well, Brie, what an amazing conversation. What a wonderful season. As you were talking about earlier episodes in the season, I do encourage our listeners, particularly if you've only just picked us up recently, to dive into different episodes when you feel like them and follow your nose, look at the titles and dive in to something that sounds interesting for you. And we're noticing a lot of our listeners are going back, and that's one of the reasons why we don't number them. We want you to dive into it like a bag of tricks and ideas to explore. And as a great believer in that we find things when we're ready for them and we listen and hear when we are ready. And so following your intuition and grabbing something that grabs your attention probably means that that's the right thing to be listening to right now. So thank you, Brie, for a wonderful first season. It's been just so magical. I'm so excited about season 2. And for those that don't know much about me, I run a photography school in Sydney. I have an online school if you wish to enroll, and I've got students from all over the world. I've got a vast video library of lessons, over 100 hours of photography teaching, and composition and art, a lot about art and creativity. I also publish a journal called Lens Journal, which is quarterly, which is the most beautiful publication. And as always, we have links to everything that we've mentioned in our show notes. You can find them at our website or in your favourite podcast reader. We ask that you subscribe and follow us, and that's when you're going to find out when season 2 is. And we also have an Instagram presence, so if you, that's a really effective way to continue the conversation with us. Our website is a creativeaffairpodcast.com. Please follow us and talk to us and continue the conversation. Well, Brie, until season 2, I hope you enjoy, have so much fun. I hope that creativity brings so much joy to your life, and I hope you, as I do, and that our listeners actually answer that question. How can we be more joyful creatives? And I really look forward to exploring the answer to that as we continue our journey in a creative affair about creativity.
Our creative passions.
How beautiful.
It is wonderful. Well, everyone, until next season, we'll miss you, but we'll be back. Until next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.